So let's understand what's going on with Bitcoin right now. It's pretty easy to see through the narrative if you really take a look and pay a little bit of attention. It's not hard to understand at all, but let's just verify a few facts, settle these things in your mind, and look forward to see what we have coming up in the future. Okay? So this short presentation is going to be on identifying the agenda that's going on with Bitcoin right now. Okay, so let's take a look at just a couple months ago. You probably heard the big news. Tesla purchases $1.5 billion in Bitcoin and announced that it would accept Bitcoin as payment for the Tesla automobile. Big news sent Bitcoin through the roof, huge price jump, big injection of optimism for Bitcoin, and as you might imagine, it was very well received in the cryptocurrency circles. Then, shortly after that, we see in the month of May, Elon Musk does a complete reversal, a 180-degree reversal, a flip-flop on Bitcoin. And now he starts to attack Bitcoin as being very unfriendly to the environment in the fact that all of the energy that's required to do the Bitcoin mining, and of course that big injection of euphoria in the Bitcoin community took a reversal, as you might expect. The price has returned back down to $48,500 at that time. It was down 14% on the announcement, simply a day earlier. Amazing reaction. Now, ask yourself this question: who is using the climate agenda as the excuse for more regulation, more taxation, more draconian control over the people, over industry, over resources? Who is doing that? Of course, it's the globalists, elites. This is the narrative. Climate change is the new excuse, along with racism, for everything that climate change doesn't cover, are the new excuses for more control, more taxation, less independence, less freedom around the world. So, no one has discovered a piece of paper to show such, but to me it seems pretty obvious that someone got to Elon Musk and says, no, Elon, Bitcoin bad, Bitcoin bad. You must tell people, Bitcoin not good, Bitcoin bad. And so we have this narrative. And so then we can move on and take a look at the European Central Bank. Of course, their narrative is that Bitcoin is risky and very speculative. With Bitcoin, you could make money, you could lose money. Very speculative. Well, let's take a look at the euro that the European Central Bank, the ECB, has foisted upon its members. How many people are making money in the euro? What can you do by holding on to the euro? Well, one thing we know for sure is that with inflation, you can buy a lot less with your euro than you could a year ago. That's one thing we know. If you're just hodling euro, how much could you make? I would venture to say not much. But Bitcoin is very risky and speculative, so beware and watch out. Then we have the ECB vice president telling us that crypto assets, they're not a real investment after all. I mean, look at these weak fundamentals that we have here. Oh, okay, let's look at the fundamentals. You mean fundamentals that I learned in my Econ 101 class like scarcity, diminishing supply, or increasing scarcity with increasing demand? You mean fundamentals like that? Let's see if I can remember what my teacher taught me in Econ 101. Scarcity and supply, increasing demand, what does that result in? Let me check my notes. I still have my notes from college over here, I think. Oh yeah, that would result in increasing price value. Much more, infinitesimally more than the euro. But we should make euro-denominated investments and not Bitcoin investments, is what this master of economics is telling us. All right, well, it's interesting. Let's ask the ECV vice president how many people were made millionaires last year simply sitting on euro in their bank account. Because if we look around, we can find as many as 100,000 or more people who have become millionaires simply sitting on their Bitcoin. Now, how's that for a comparison? How many of those millionaires, those brand new Bitcoin millionaires, are worried about fundamentals, do you think? Let me guess. I would probably guess 0. Okay, so we see what's going on there. All right, then we go over to and look at China. Of course, you know, China is intent on dominating the world. Dominating world resources, dominating politics. They're dominating education and media in the United States. They're intent on dominating the South China Sea and elsewhere militarily, becoming a dominant player in the military sphere. They're intent on dominating space with technology that they have either induced to come to China or they have stolen. And so in view of their will to dominate the world, they're also wanting to dominate Bitcoin. And they're calling for a crackdown on mining and trading. We have to crack down on Bitcoin because it creates independence. And that doesn't bode well for plans and schemes for domination. All right? So the pressure is coming from all angles. And just in the last couple of days, mid-May, Bitcoin continued its reversal, going even lower as soon as Biden, the wannabe presidential puppet, and his administration announced plans for increased IRS enforcement. Oh, they always do that. They always do that. They put those headlines out there to scare people. Don't you dare think about being a scofflaw on your taxes. We're going to increase enforcement. He says they want to raise another $700 billion in revenue over the coming decade by stepping up IRS scrutiny of Americans. Those darn Americans need more scrutiny, including doubling the size of the IRS workforce by hiring 87,000 additional employees. Reporting that the crypto transfers would be set to begin 2023. Meaning that all crypto transfers above $10,000 would need to be reported. And then you get into capital gains, calculations, issues, admin, compliance, the cost of that compliance, and then, of course, the ultimate cost of paying the capital gains taxes whenever you sold your Bitcoin or used it in any way, creating an absolute administrative nightmare, which would be almost impossible to comply with for many people who are frequent users of Bitcoin. So, again, it's coming in from all angles, but that's not enough. We have to look at the overt attempt now in the narrative to smear Bitcoin, and anytime some kind of scam or criminal activity appears, they now have to associate Bitcoin with that criminal activity. And so then the story is not so much the criminal activity, but the story is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually fomenting criminal activity. Well, let me think about that. Before Bitcoin came along, was there criminal activity beforehand? Did criminals exist before Bitcoin? Do criminals use fiat currency to launder money or to engage in illegal transactions? Yeah, well, we never hear about that. But whenever Bitcoin is used, that's the story. That's the narrative. It's pretty clear and pretty obvious, and it's pretty weak and it's pretty pathetic. But we can see right through it. We see what's going on here. All right? Now, these attacks are coming from all angles, as you can see. It's a concerted attempt. It's coordinated. And would you be the least bit surprised that all of this is leading up to the announcement just this week by Fed Chairman Powell that the Feds are exploring the creation of government cryptocurrency? They're not saying they're going to do it. They're just kind of testing their waters, dipping their toe in the water to test the temperature. They're just kind of chit-chatting about it around the water cooler. They're not saying they're going to do it. They're just kind of exploring it. They're going to create a paper this summer. And bullshit, Chairman Powell. Don't insult us with this drivel. Everyone knows very well that the attack on Bitcoin is to set the stage for a more stable cryptocurrency issued by the federal government. Here's a section of that very same article. He says, to date, cryptocurrencies have not served as a convenient way to make payments. Well, based on my history, compared to banks, I would make a pretty strong argument against that, Mr. Powell. But he says this in a statement announcing this move. Coins tied to the value of the dollar or another currency known as stablecoins have emerged as a new way to make payments. These stablecoins aim to use new technologies in a way that has the potential to enhance payment efficiency. Compared to the banks, anything would be an improvement. It would speed up settlement flows and reduce user costs. Look at all these benefits. But they may also carry potential risks to those users and the financial system, talking about the existing stablecoins, right? As stablecoins use increases, so must our attention to the appropriate regulatory and oversight framework. Cryptocurrencies, including USD Coin and Tether, have emerged as so-called stablecoins, which are pegged at $1. However, the Tether operator, Finex, shelled out $18.5 million this year to settle a lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James this year, who said Finex's claim that its digital currency was backed by physical fiat was a lie. The issue contributed to critics' skepticism of Tether and other stablecoins. So now we have to smear all of the stablecoins and say, we, the Fed, are going to come out with something better. Well, let's define better, shall we? Okay. So you can see what's happening here. This is all going in a coordinated attempt to drive the narrative, to steer the population in a certain direction, away from freedom and independence with independent cryptocurrencies, and into the corral with central bank-dominated cryptocurrencies. All right? So needless to say, this has had quite a negative impact in just recent days in the markets. we can see in this chart, this is Bitcoin against the US dollar, the daily chart. These are the price action. Each bar represents the price action for one day on the calendar. And you can see from the high of nearly 65,000 about a month ago, it's now down nearly 50%, around 34, approaching $32,000. Okay? So these announcements, this fear-mongering, these scare tactics, and market manipulations, dare I say, have had an effect. So does that mean that the days of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin, are over? The happy days are gone? That the hope and dreams of Bitcoin millionaires, or soon-to-be Bitcoin millionaires, or wannabe Bitcoin millionaires are all gone? No, not in the least. Let me show you something here that you should find quite interesting. This is not terribly abnormal. Yes, this drop has been drastic. It has impacted a lot of people. A lot of people have lost money. But this chart shows us, you see the three vertical dotted lines. These are points in the calendar every 4 years when the Bitcoin halving occurs. Bitcoin halving is when the miners for Bitcoin receive half of the premium for doing the mining they do, which means that the supply of Bitcoin is thus restricted to that extent. And so you can see the price action leading up to each halving date. This is a 4-year cycle. So we got 2012, 2016, and the last halving was May of last year, 2020. This chart's a little bit outdated. It's not totally up to date, but you can see the pattern that has evolved here. You can see a strong run-up in the early time frame of that halving cycle. You can see a dramatic pullback each and every time as people take profits, and then it goes through a period of consolidation typically, and then before the next halving date, there's a run-up on the price. After the halving date, it's almost parabolic. As that supply has been reduced, demand continues to increase, and so the price keeps going up. And the same thing has happened after last year's halving in May. If we were to look at a current chart to the right of the dotted line on the right-hand side, we would see the pattern continue. All right, so this is not at all unusual. And for those who have hopes in Bitcoin for the future, I would say that what's happening now, despite the dramatic pullback, is according to the model. This has happened before, and it fits the pattern exactly. So you draw your own conclusions as far as that goes. All right? And here's a very good article going all the way back to January of this year, 2021, which pretty well sums things up in terms of what the general attitude, i.e. fear, is that the powers that be have in relation to Bitcoin and what might be fueling the constant attacks on Bitcoin. Of course, anything that has to do with freedom, independence, self-reliance for the people who would then become less reliant on their governmental overlords is a threat to that system and must be unassembled. Okay, for lack of a better term. So read this with me real quickly. Big news for cryptocurrencies. European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde has, in an interview, called for more global regulation of Bitcoin by claiming the international community, starting from the G7, should come together and draw clear regulation for it in the near future. She stated that cryptocurrencies had been used for money laundering activities and loopholes have to be closed. Of course, fiat currency has never been used for money laundering activities. She went on to deny that Bitcoin could become a real currency, calling it just a speculative asset bubble. This is not her first attack on Bitcoin either. She's been consistently calling for an international regulation of cryptocurrency. In other words, they want to know who's using it, what for, why, and are they reporting it. In 2018, she claimed their ascendancy had been fueled by a herd mentality by speculators looking for high yields, not by real underlying value. Of course, scarcity and demand have nothing to do with fundamentals or value, do they? An even more alarming fact is the following year in September 2019, during a less overheated market, our dear friend Lagarde said that the government has to step in and cryptocurrencies less speculative trough regulation, with the recognition for the potential wider social benefits from innovation. But we all know what that really means. Let's read in between the lines here. Her aim, as she has said many times, even in this last interview, is to create a government-controlled euro digital coin. Why would they do that? Simple. It would make manipulation of money supply that much easier, giving central banks more power to control the people. Bitcoin is people's money. It allows us to be our own bank, and that's dangerous to these people. We're in the way of their ever-growing thirst for power and centralization of the economy. The swamp is under attack. Lagarde looked scared, even insecure, when she called for more regulation in an almost trembling voice. Watch the interview yourself if you don't believe me. Central bankers are getting scared. They see what Bitcoin is becoming. Now that the price has skyrocketed to over $40,000, that was in January, volatility is slowly but surely diminishing as more everyday folk flock in, preoccupied by the insane money printing that has happened in the last year due to COVID stimulus. The swamp creatures are scared, you can be sure, but they won't be going down without a fight. By regulating Bitcoin to increase their power, they're only making one thing clear. The case for a decentralized currency has never been stronger. These people are not on our side. That's clearer by the day. More and more people are waking up. Even if they decided to take it a step further and go full draconian, banning Bitcoin to everyone altogether, something else will take its place. This won't be stopped easily. The mistrust in education is already there and ever growing. Evil will not prevail if good is stronger. The government regulating the cryptocurrency market is just an acknowledgement that we are right. This is not only a speculative bubble, it's a new currency with power to free humanity from the tyranny of central banks. Regulating it will only make more people see it as it is and join the battle cry for freedom. Getting government involved would just lead to overregulation. The principal reason why people migrate to crypto is to get away from government interference. Crypto developers should remember this when calling for more regulation, counterproductive to the ideal of decentralized finance. We don't like them, we don't want them, and we sure as hell don't trust them. Bitcoin is the people's money. Do not forget who and what we are fighting. Touché. So it's pretty easy to see what's going on with Bitcoin. It's under attack. I don't believe, in my personal opinion, that the forces against Bitcoin will overcome the forces that are pro-Bitcoin. I think the market will decide. And as far as that goes, there's the best news is yet to come. The best news I have for you is coming in part 2. All right, you're going to learn in part 2 how to protect your baby crypto chicks from the voracious regulators. You're going to learn how to maintain total privacy under universal law, like gravity. cannot be avoided. It predominates over everything. All right, then you're going to learn how to become legally and safely exempt from capital gains. Nobody wants to be a scofflaw. Nobody wants to get in trouble. Nobody wants to push the envelope, get into gray areas. Let's just follow the law the way it's written, position ourselves so that we are exempt from capital gains. They simply don't apply to us because the capital gain is not yours. Okay? That can be done very easily, and still you'd be able to manage and use the portfolio in various ways. All right? So it's just a matter of repositioning, legally speaking. So this is very sensitive information that we're going to get into. It's proprietary. It's not available to the public, and it's only available to our Global Entrepreneur members. And we'd be more than happy to share that with you upon your request. So with that, I want to hopefully leave you with some hope and optimism for the future of Bitcoin, that it is being attacked by evil forces, and that we, as a part of the global movement for freedom and independence, will prevail in the end with a little bit of due diligence, knowledge, and applied disciplinary law. We just have to apply the law, and we'll be fine. Thank you for your attention. Take care, and God bless.